Full Throttle, located at Six Flags Magic Mountain in Valencia, California, is a very interesting Premier Rides launch coaster. This ride doesn't have a whole lot, but what it does have is very good. At the time of Full Throttle's opening in 2013, it was Magic Mountain's second launch coaster. This opened 16 years after the park's first launch coaster, Superman Escape from Krypton, and 7 years before their third one, West Coast Racers. Premier Rides came into existence in the 1990s, and they've basically only built launch coasters. In fact, they only have one non-launch coaster. In 2010, Premier opened their first Skyrocket model, promptly named Skyrocket, located at Kennywood. This had a nice launch at the beginning and a few inversions throughout the layout. This was the start of what became Premier's most successful model, the Skyrocket 2. They built their first of these at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom as Superman Ultimate Flight in 2012. These launch coasters have been cloned a bunch of times, and they're great because of their forces and the space they take up. You can really plop these down anywhere, and they're a really complete ride experience for such a short coaster. So in 2013, Six Flags Magic Mountain bought the Premier Rides Skyrocket 3, and there's only ever been one of these built, Full Throttle. I really enjoyed the Premier Rides Skyrocket 2s. I think they're fantastic, but I gotta say, Full Throttle and the Skyrocket 3 is an improvement over those Skyrocket 2s. Part of it is because of the custom layout. This is a terrain coaster and there's no doubt about it. If you want to ride this ride, it's going to be right at the front of the park to the right of the entrance. If you walk past Bugs Bunny World, it'll be the first major coaster you'll see to the right of the entrance. This ride has its own dedicated plaza, and it generally has a YOLO type theme, hence the Full Throttle name. Granted, you won't find much actual theming here, but that was the idea they were going for. As I said, it's a terrain coaster, and while you start at the front of the park, you make your way over the top of the hill and over to Samurai Summit where that dive loop is. From what I've seen, lines for this coaster can be an issue, but because they are always running multiple trains, it's not nearly as big of an issue as some of the other coasters that are prone to running one train. The operations on this coaster, from what I saw, were pretty middle of the pack. Nothing too fast, nothing too slow. Good enough. And the 2 trains definitely helps. One great thing about Full Throttle is the trains. The trains on this ride are excellent. You not only can get a good amount of airtime room, but they're comfortable enough as well. They do have shin guards, but they didn't ruin the experience for me. And I still got to experience those forces. One final note before getting into those forces that you'll experience while riding Full Throttle is that these ride ops do not want you to bring down your own lap bar. They want to push it down for you. I'm not particularly sure why, but they're pretty adamant about it. So much so that they have a recording over the speakers in the station that sometimes will replay 5 or 6 times in a row telling you not to push down your lap bar. Again, I have no idea why this is, but it's kind of interesting because on some of the other coasters at the park you can and some you can't. So while it doesn't change the ride, it is just kind of funny. Luckily, there's no comfort collars on this, even though there are seatbelts, but as I said, the trains are overall good. So let's get to the ride experience now. You launch right out of the station, reaching speeds of 70 miles an hour. Is it as powerful as some other launches I've experienced? Well, no, but is it powerful enough? I think so. You still feel the speed, and there's a decent enough kick to these LSMs. It's fun too how the ride-ups typically tease you and kind of make you second guess when you're actually going to launch. That is immediately followed up by one of the best vertical loops on any coaster. You're upside down for a good 5 or 6 seconds at least, and in the morning I think you're upside down even longer because the ride hasn't warmed up yet. I've experienced good hang time on coasters before. How about those Premier Rides Skyrocket 2s? But I've never felt the blood rush to my head on a coaster before, which just goes to show how long you're hanging upside down. It's wonderful. And with those lap bars, the feeling is really accentuated and you feel pretty free. Now, this vertical loop opened as the world's tallest vertical loop. This has since been broken by a couple of mock hypers, but Magic Mountain, in that aforementioned recording I mentioned in the station, still claims that this is the world's tallest looping coaster. So, I guess they don't want to give that record up. Even if it's lost the record, it's still one of the best hang time moments you're going to find. Then you kind of use the terrain a bit here before approaching the dive loop. It's not particularly forceful through here, but you feel a bit of speed and it's smooth, so it's still fun. Then the dive loop is really a great moment, especially if you're in the back, because you get absolutely pulled through it. This dive loop then traverses you into a tunnel in the side of the hill. This tunnel originally held a transportation ride, but once that ride was removed, Magic Mountain put this launch section in here, which is a brilliant idea. Then comes the surprise, the backwards launch. If you're a first-time rider who didn't do a whole lot of research, you may not even know it's here. But yep, Full Throttle has a backwards launch too. It has some pretty good kick to it, and it takes you back through that dive loop that you just went through a moment ago. Then, those in the middle car in particular will get some awesome sideways hang time. Everyone will come out of their seat here, but it does differ slightly depending on your row. If you're in the right spot of the train, the hang time almost rivals the vertical loop, to be honest. After you fall back through that vertical loop and back into the tunnel, you launch for the third time and approach your final element. But let's not skip over that launch. This might be the best launch on the coaster, and you definitely feel an increase in speed as you go through that tunnel and onto the other side. I think the launches on Full Throttle all kind of fall into the same category. They're powerful enough, but not the most powerful. That said, I think this is probably the most powerful one, and it's an awesome ending here. After a left-hand turn, you rise up over the vertical loop that you went through earlier and have an awesome airtime filled drop to end the ride. The closest I got to the front row was the middle of the train, but I've heard the airtime up there is a little more sustained, but in the back you get some sharp, wicked ejector airtime. We've had the hang time, and now there's an awesome moment of airtime for all. Now, the trim brakes halfway down do ruin it in that sense because it doesn't continue as long as it could, but I don't think it's a huge deal. I would love to see this ride get an extended ending, maybe with an extra inversion or something, but you still get to appreciate that airtime and you still get taken out of your seat. I don't have nearly as big of a problem with the brakes here as some other people do. I forgive it. I think it's a great ending to the coaster nonetheless. That said, if the ending were longer, it would fix this coaster's biggest issue, and that is probably the duration. It only has 2,200 feet of track, and even with that backwards section and stop in the tunnel, it's not the longest ride. The first leg of the ride, i.e. everything before that stop in the tunnel, is about 22 seconds, and the second leg is about 20 seconds, so the prime ride time isn't actually that bad in comparison to other coasters, but because of the launch and no lift hill, it does feel a little short. But I don't think it's a deal breaker at all, and it ended up being my second favorite coaster at Magic Mountain behind Twisted Colossus, which was a surprise to me. I thought this was a really good ride. Final score, 9 out of 10. As I said in the beginning, this ride doesn't have a whole lot, but what it does have is very, very good. This is a really smooth, comfortable, and fun Premier Rides launch coaster that is ultimately better than the Premier Rides Skyrocket 2s in my opinion. Definitely worth a spin while at Six Flags Magic Mountain. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on Full Throttle, located at Six Flags Magic Mountain in Valencia, California, the Premier Rides Skyrocket 3 that opened 11 years ago in 2013. Let me know what you think of this ride in the comment section below, and I'll see you all in the next one.